It's hard to remember a time when Toyotas weren't ubiquitous on American roadways. Chances are, if you're going to buy a new car, Toyota is at the top of your list, and you're probably looking at one of their trucks, like the 4Runner, Tacoma, or Tundra. But there was a time that American roadways were dominated by big, sloppy American cars, and Toyota entered the US market by selling small, fuel-efficient, and nimble cars, which were the antithesis of an American Luxo boat. They saw great success with this strategy, and it began to pay off in the year 1997 when the Toyota Camry became the best-selling car in America. And between 1997 and 2020, it held that title for all but 1 year. Toyota also enjoyed massive success in the SUV and truck world in the 80s and 90s. But their strategy was largely similar to the one they used for their cars. They only sold small, fuel-efficient trucks, but by the early 90s they knew it was time to enter the full-size truck market, and they used their Toyota wisdom there too. In 1993 they released this, the Toyota T100, and it was their first full-size truck. Even though it was a full-size truck, it was slightly smaller than its American counterparts like the F-150 and Silverado, and it was only available with a V6 for increased fuel economy. In fact, when the Toyota T100 was first released, Toyota received a lot of complaints because the 3-liter V6 it came with was just not powerful enough to motivate this massive truck. Fortunately, Toyota listened to these complaints and fitted later models with this, the 3400 V6, which has now become an infamous engine for being one of the most durable, reliable, and robust powertrains ever placed in a vehicle. These are shared with the engine in the 3rd gen 4Runner, and if you go online and look at some of those listed for sale, you'll see an alarming amount with over 300,000 miles that are running great, which is just insane. And it goes to show that this is a great engine to have here in a work truck. Up next on the interior, you'll notice this T100 shares a lot in common with the 4Runner and Tacoma of this era. You have the same seats, same steering wheel, and a lot of the same switchgear here on the interior. Nothing fancy in here, just a lot of plastic and durable material to do all the work you need around the house and also go on some awesome outdoor adventures in your T100. One piece of creativity that does not match the rest of the rather boring interior are the gauges. These are some of the coolest gauges I've ever seen. The readouts for the coolant temperature, battery voltage, and fuel level are mounted on these 3-dimensional spherical things, and as the truck warms up and as you're driving, you can watch the needle slowly rotate around these spherical kind of measurements here. It's one of the coolest designs I've ever seen, and I'll give Toyota a lot of credit for incorporating that here. Another really cool thing about this truck that you'd certainly never see nowadays is that this is a really high-level, top-trim truck equipped with power windows, power door locks, and 4-wheel drive, yet it was optioned with a manual transmission. You can't even get a manual transmission in any modern truck, but if you wanted a manual in your top trim level T100 back in the day, you could have it. And personally, I think a lot of people would still want to opt for a manual transmission in their truck if they could, and I wish manufacturers would bring back the option. One last really cool feature on this truck is that it comes from the early days of fitting neutral safety switches into manual transmission vehicles. However, this truck has a button over here that says clutch start cancel. Now I assume what this does is disable the neutral safety switch so that you can start the car without pushing the clutch in, which I think is a really cool feature. Sometimes I'm just sick of pushing down the clutch when I'm going to start my car, and I've driven a lot of cars where if you push in the clutch but not all the way down, it won't start the car. So sometimes I just want to start in neutral and not worry about the clutch. So that's a pretty cool feature, and I think all manual cars should have it. We'll now move to the back of this truck where you'll notice it's an extended cab, yet this door here is not a door, it doesn't open. In a lot of modern trucks you'll see a handle here where you can open this up to allow it for easier access, but in this truck this passenger seat just slides forward to let you get into the back here. And here what you'll find is what the owner of this truck calls the 2-hour seat, which means it's just good enough to take your friends out for a hike and they could sit back here for about 2 hours, but after that it starts to get rather uncomfortable. But it's nice to have the option and still retain the compact profile of this truck without having a super cab model. It's nice to just have some jump seats back here where you can hang out you know, and get around. There's actually not bad room here. It's just more like the bottom seat cushion doesn't like provide any sort of support. You're just sitting back here with your legs up in the air, but it's not that bad. There's plenty of leg room back here and headroom as well. Lastly, I want to talk about the way this truck looks. I absolutely love the styling on this truck. Toyota's current Tundra is all about being massive and huge and muscular from every angle. It's got a huge grille, massive mirrors, and it's just gargantuan in every meaning of the word. But this truck is quite the opposite. A reasonable sized grille, reasonable sized mirrors, and an overall sleek and simple look that just works so well. It's just so honest, and you can tell that this is a hard-working truck. And it's not too intimidating, so it allows you to become attached to the vehicle over time, as the owner of this one has. In fact, the owner of this truck loves it so much that he's painted it with New Mexico-style graphics in honor of the state he used to live in, and he's given the truck a nickname, La Toya, which is really cool. And I absolutely love the way you can become attached to these older vehicles. They have so much character, and they're so approachable and friendly to use. And with that out of the way, it's time to take the T100 for a drive and see what it's all about. Let's go. All right, so we are on the road in the T100. And it's really interesting to drive this truck because this is kind of the precursor to the Tundra, which has become this massive success, and everyone loves the Tundra. It's one of the best full-size trucks. And it all started here, humble beginnings with the T100. And I absolutely love the way this truck drives. It's kind of like a blend between a Tacoma 4Runner and a Tundra. It's like not quite as big as a Tundra, but it's bigger than a 4Runner Tacoma. It fits right in that sweet spot that the Dodge Dakota occupied for a long time. It's like in between a full-size and compact truck. And it's just so nice to drive a big truck with a manual transmission. Yeah, and the gear shifter in this truck is surprisingly precise. I've driven a lot of these older kind of late 80s, early 90s, early 2000s trucks with manuals, and they're very sloppy and imprecise, but this truck is quite the opposite. It's actually very easy to shift. The clutch is very predictable. The gear shifter is very notchy, so like it slots right into gear. We're here coming around town. Brakes are excellent. First gear is pretty low gear, so when you're at slow speeds, it's sometimes wiser to start in second. And now we're here cruising, going about 40 miles an hour, and the truck drives phenomenal. It's so smooth, so quiet, very refined, and it's really a joy to drive. I really love cars from this era, early 90s, late 90s, because they're just the right blend of, you know, vintage kind of, they have a lot of character, but yet they're modern enough that they drive great. They're not like all over the place like some older cars are. And this truck is that's definitely the case with this truck. It drives really well. Now let's talk about engine power. So as I was saying in the video, these trucks were never sold with a V8, which I was surprised to learn. I honestly, I don't know why I thought the T100s had a V8, but I was surprised to learn that they were only available with a V6. The 3400 I've driven with this engine in the 3rd Gen 4Runner. It's a great engine. It's not the most sporty engine. Like it's a really kind of more of a robust engine for doing work. It's not extremely responsive. It's not very like willing to rev high. You really you feel like you have to work for the power. There's certainly enough power in this truck to get, you know, to survive daily life. Like you're not holding up traffic. It's relatively quick. It moves, but it's not like a sports car, you know, like. And I could definitely see how with the 3-liter V6, it was probably very, very slow, and that's why Toyota received a lot of complaints over the years. But yeah, this truck has some get up and go. First gear, as I was saying, is very short, but once you're up to speed, you know, the truck gets up and goes. There's little to no road noise, no wind noise. It's kind of surprising. I might actually have to get one of these for myself. That's why these reviews are very dangerous for me, because at the end of them, I just have to buy all of these cars. It's kind of a problem. I'm gonna give it some gas over here. Taking off from second that time because there's a slow driver in front of me. Yeah, it's not very quick, but you can hustle the truck. And I know I sound like a broken record saying this, but it's just so nice driving a car that's not filled with touchscreens, unnecessary crap that just makes driving difficult. In the end of the day, a car is just to drive from place to place. So everything that is not about driving actually takes your focus off the road. It makes it more dangerous. But it also distracts you from driving. You know, this truck is just so easy to drive. When you get in it, you just turn the key. It's got a manual, you just go. You don't have to think about anything. It's just so pure, it's so awesome, and I love it. And when you drive this car, you know, the owner of this truck, he spent 8 years hiking in Silver City, New Mexico. He used to use this truck to go off-road and for all his hiking excursions, and you really get a feel for that when you drive this truck. It just feels like so capable. You're ready to take on any adventure, anything that comes your way. This truck is ready to take you there. You're living up in the mountains in the backwoods. Like, it's just so rugged and like, yeah, it's just such a cool truck. And I feel like the T100 is kind of overlooked when it comes to trucks. We all know about the Tundra, we know about the Tacoma, Dakota, Silverado, F-150, Ram 1500, all that stuff. But people forget about the T100 because it's kind of in this middle ground where no one really knows this truck ever existed. So I've driven some older trucks, they're generally pretty sloppy, but this thing drives closer to a 4Runner of this period, which is a car that you see hundreds of every day because they're that good. So yeah, I'm in love with this truck, and I'm so thrilled that I got the opportunity to drive it. One additional thing I'll mention, I know I said the brakes were good earlier, but I mean, they're surprisingly good. I'm just like, for an older truck, it's a big vehicle, you know, it's not the most modern braking technology, and the brakes are just phenomenal in this truck. You're accelerating. Yeah, it runs strong. 3400's an excellent motor. Once you're up to speed here, and I'll get it into fifth, it really just cruises so smooth, and the steering is predictable. There's quite a bit of body roll, but it feels like a truck. I used to have a Ford Ranger, kind of drove like this. Like, the steering is predictable. It's not like, you know, when you're turning it, it does stuff. It's not like all over the place, but it's still kind of a lumbering situation. But yeah, it just cruises so nice. It's so quiet. I can see why everyone loves to drive trucks. I drive a regular, you know, smaller car at the moment, but you just get this king of the road experience. You're sitting way up high. There's a CRV in front of me, and I just like can see over the roof. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.